Hello, it is Monday again. Are you ready for it? Let's go. Okay, United States of America. Share of total wealth gain 1983 to 2009. Yep, it's the same old thing, but if you really get it solid into your head, then it should stay there and maybe help with some thinking about what's been a going on. So these blue bars going up is the share of the total wealth and where it's been attributed since 1983. The top 1%, 40, they get 40% or have got 40%. The next 4%, so making up the top 5%, they got 41%. So the top 5% have got 82%. The next 5%, so making up the top 10%, have got 10%. So add that to the 82, and so the top 10% have got 92% of the wealth that's been generated over the last, well, since 1983. Then you've got the next 10%, making the top 20%. They got 10%, so you add that to the 10% of the next 5%, and the top 5%, so you get the top 20% have got 82, 92, they've got the bloody lot. All right, got the lot. So the upper middle fifth there got 5%, 5.7%, which is nearly nothing, and it went over 100% because the middle fifth, and lower fifth have all gone negative. Now, there are different ways to make these figures up, but that is basically the picture. Since 1983 to 2009, and you can guarantee up till now, the money's going to the top. And the bottom are doing badly. And the middle is doing badly as well. All going to the top. Right, moving on. Total household net worth as a percentage of GDP, United States of America. Calculated risk blog. I put a little blob in there at 1985. But you can see it was pretty flat. And then it's got those two big peaks in it. The first peak is obviously the technology peak in the stock market. Now, not everybody has shares in the stock market, but when they did have the run up to 2000, they were doing nicely, but then it all fell off. But houses, most people have houses, 66% of something, I don't know what it is. Lots of people have got houses, lots of people live in houses. And that was the second, obviously, mountain there that has dropped off, and that is total household net worth as a percentage of GDP, which is now equivalent to about 1996. This is retail and food service sales with cumulative growth. Now, if you just do retail and food service sales, they've gone up a lot since 1992. They've gone up 137%, that one great big dip down for the Great Recession that's ended, and we're all doing fabulously now, and it's over and above that. But Doug Short, who made this chart, has adjusted it for population growth in red, adjusted it for inflation in light blue, and adjusted for population growth and inflation, dark blue. And at the bottom now we can see only a cumulative growth of 18.2% since 1992. Really very, very little indeed. And obviously it's because the top 10% don't spend that bigger percentage of their wealth on on buying things, basically. It gets stocked away in the stock market, or I don't know what they do with it. Anyway, from the rest of the population, that number is low because they are not getting any more money. Okay. This is a weird one. It's a bit tricky. I'll do my best to explain, but I just don't know the full explanation. It's a bit of a tricky chart because it's got two indices with different numbers on them. So if we go for grocery store sales, food stores, RHS, which is right hand out. Right hand scale, you can see it starts in the top left, but you've got to look over to the top right. It was about $200 per month, real monthly per capita food purchases. Yeah, grocery store about $200 a month in 1992, and that's come down, top left, bottom right, to 165. Yeah, since 1992. On the other scale, LHS left-hand scale, we've got food services, which is restaurants, and this is real monthly per capita food purchases per month was about $110 spent in restaurants in 1992, which went up to $200 in just before the recession. Came down in the recession to 185 and then now is going up again. I'll tell you what I read into this, but I don't know, obviously. By restaurants in the United States of America, I think we're mainly talking buying boigers and pizzas. And I think the people have generally found that it's cheaper to buy boigers and pizzas. So they've not been buying things in the grocery stores because it's cheaper actually to just grab a burger and fries. And that's what that is. At the moment, though, you see they were crossing each other at the start of the chart, going down and going up. But now they're running in, they ran in tandem for a while. But now they're diverging a bit. So you're going to have to sort that out for yourself. But it's an interesting sort of chart, isn't it? Because that's real, as in adjusted for inflation, I imagine, monthly per capita food purchases, the way people in the United States are spending their money on food. Interesting? See if you can sort it out and tell me where I might be going wrong. Right. Let's go a bit more macro here to Washington. And this is Ezra Klein writing, highlighted in yellow. But the fact remains that 3 years into the crisis, there's very little consensus in Washington about the sort of crisis we're in and the sort of policies needed to get us out. That's the bottom line, although it's at the top. John Boehner wants the super committee deal to be all spending cuts. House Speaker John Boehner on Thursday reaffirmed GOP opposition to any tax increases to solve the nation's deficit problem. So they think they've got a problem, that's the deficit problem. Signalling a swift return to the trench warfare that characterised the debt and spending debate of early summer. That's not going to help, is it? Boehner said that the special committee seeking long-term debt reduction should achieve its mandated $1.5 trillion in savings entirely by cutting federal agency spending and shrinking entitlement programs. And that should be $2 trillion now, shouldn't it? Because the president said that they should pass the Jobs Act. So that'll make that $2 trillion they've got to find. When it comes to producing savings to reach its $1.5 trillion deficit reduction target, the Joint Select Committee has only one option: spending cuts and entitlement reform. In other words, cutting entitlements. Boehner said in a speech to the Economic Club of Washington. Boehner's speech established that there has been little change in the fundamental position that gridlocked Washington during the past few months. And what Nick is pointing out is that they have no idea what they're talking about, do they? And I'm not knocking it. I'm not expecting them to. But it's quite clear that they have no idea what's going on. You know, taking into account all of what I've said before, those charts of how well America is doing, except for the top 5%. And the answer is not very well, and hasn't been doing well for a long, long time. It's not just a new problem. But do they know what is causing this problem? No, they don't. Across the pond, Germany rejects using ECB leverage to increase European Rescue Fund's size. Germany's top two financial officials rejected using the European Central Bank to boost the euro area rescue fund's firepower, rebuffing a suggestion by US Treasury Secretary Turbo Timmy Geithner. They said, no, we're not going to leverage it up. We're not going to do that sort of American naughtiness. It's all very... What are you going to do then? Inviting Geithner to a Euro meeting for the first time, European finance chiefs who wrapped up 2 days of talks in Wrocław, Poland today, said the 18-month debt crisis leaves no room for tax cuts or extra spending to spur an economy on the brink of stagnation. Similar ideas there then, aren't there? They know what they're not going to do. So let's throw it outside. Let's get another opinion on this. That is in blue. That's George Soros's tie, you can just see there. Here are the 4 measures that Soros says need to be taken to avert a meltdown. Bank deposits have to be protected. They are anyway, George, aren't they? In Europe, I think it's €80,000 maximum for each person for the whole of the Eurozone. If you've got different accounts in different countries or many accounts in one country, it counts not. You only get one lot of protection of €80,000. Some banks in the defaulting countries have to be kept functioning in order to keep the economy from breaking down. Let's talk about Greece here. Some banks in the defaulting countries have to be kept functioning, so somebody's got to take over the Greek banks, basically buy them, because nationalising them is no good. That's roughly what's happening now, that the Greeks are going to nationalise their banks, but what's the point when the Greek government hasn't got any money? So they're going to have to be nationalised by a European entity that doesn't exist at the moment. European banking system would have to be recapitalised and put under European as distinct from national supervision, going against what Merkel said in the beginning. And again, first they'd have to invent a European institution that could do that job. It doesn't actually exist now. You could say the EFSF does, but that's just an office in Luxembourg. The government bonds of the other deficit countries, we're talking Italy and Spain here, would have to be protected from contagion. The last 2 measures would apply even if no country defaults, according to Soros. So the government bonds of Italy and Spain have to be protected from contagion. How do you do that? You've got to buy them on the open market. Who's going to do that? The ECB are saying that they don't want to do that. The EFSF says, well, we'll do as we're told, but it's too small to do that. And the politicians haven't a clue what to do. The problem is Europe is missing the key ingredient, a common treasury. It just doesn't exist, George. And putting one in is just not a press button type thing. The problem is Europe is missing the key ingredient, a common treasury. So I've gone to the Financial Times. No, this is Telegraph. Coin, near Malaga in southern Spain, is, like many towns across the crisis-hit nation, on the verge of bankruptcy, with an estimated debt of nearly €30 million owed by the town council. For more than a week, there has been no lighting in public areas after the power company cut them off. Meanwhile, 500 council employees in the town have not been paid their August wages, it was reported. Now, I've put this in to show that this European Treasury that George wants has got to have control over European area spendings. But even countries now, Spain, does not have control over its areas spending. It's got counties, areas, Andalusia and places like that, that are semi-autonomous. They spend most of the Spanish government, state, local government is spent by those areas, those counties, those states, and they're not under the control of Spanish central government, Elena Delgado, is doing a marvellous job in Madrid, doing the federal Spanish spending, but the states are just still spending wildly, and the local areas are still spending wildly. But the central, Madrid, the capital, has no control over Andalusia's spending. So why should a central European treasury in Brussels have then control over Andalusia's spending or Coin's spending? It's a far deeper problem than press button, take ticket. Greece to offer new liquidity guarantees to banks. I won't go too far into it. This is more desperation stuff because Greece is desperate. They're saying we shall issue bonds that back our Greek central bank lendings to our banks. It's exactly what happened in Ireland, but in Ireland they are making more efforts to try and keep it going, at least medium term. Greece, this is just a desperate measure that their Greek central banks, each central bank still exists, is going to print up euros backed by the Greek government to keep everything going, because nobody else can keep it going. And finish with Gordon Brown fears Euro crisis worse than Lehman as 1930s beckon. This is Ambrose Evans Pritchard over in China and a meeting over there. Gordon Brown has warned that Europe's fast escalating crisis is now more dangerous than the Lehman Brothers disaster 3 years ago, threatening to tip the West into a 1930s style slump unless global leaders work together to take drastic action. And again, I hate bringing up Gordon Brown here, but Ambrose Evans Pritchard has from China, and it's just so sad that Gordon Brown, with his lack of brain, one eye, can see the problem from China. And in a way, it's a first step to see the problem, because I don't think the European politicians have even seen the problem yet, let alone gone anywhere close to working out what to do about the problem. And I don't think they have much in the United States either, or probably where you live. Bye.